Betty, Joanna here, and Abby. Today we're going to talk about dirt versus soil. And soil really is the key. It's the foundation to everything. If you look back in the Bible, man and woman were created from soil, and so it's a great place to start today. So, Abby, I want you to tell us a little bit about what dirt is.
Okay, so dirt is dead and it's degraded. There's no biological life there, living organisms. You know, you're not even seeing earthworms, because of excessive tillage and chemical, synthetic fertilizer use, and also in how you take your animals across the land and stuff matters in the management of them. It all degrades your dirt, your soil.
Mm-hmm. So in contrast to dirt, soil is alive. The I'm going to get the word wrong.
Mycorrhizal fungi.
Mycorrhizal fungi, which Abby told me a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
And just microorganisms, earthworms, everything is living. Their habitats are alive. They are
building
homes and doing what they are supposed to do. It's nature. It's mimicking nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so soil also is able to absorb water. It takes CO2 gases out of the air. It stores it so that you can feed the plants, which in turn feeds the animals,
mm-hmm.
which in turn they poop. I mean, it's just all a natural process of life. You don't see that in dirt. Like we said, dirt is dead. Because it can't absorb the water. It's not absorbing these CO2 gases. You're having runoffs and just lots of problems.
Yes.
So a really cool fact that Abby told me about soil.
Yes, cool fact number 1 is that there is more microorganisms in a teaspoon of soil than what there is people in this world.
And that's kind of crazy if you just think of a teaspoon and that soil and just how much is going on in just that amount.
Mm-hmm.
Another really cool fact is that soil is going to smell sweet. It's going to smell earthy, whereas the dirt is going to smell sour, metallic-y. Abby said like a kitchen sink.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you really think about it, do you really want to eat food that has been eating metallic kitchen smells? Or something that smells like earth, smells the way it's supposed to smell?
Mm-hmm. When you have bare dirt and the sun is beating down on it, it is making that dirt hotter and hotter. And what's happening then with those organisms that are there, they slow down as it gets hotter. And when it reaches to a certain degree, they actually end up dying from the
temperatures.
The
being so hot.
temperature, yeah, and the ground being bare.
Mm-hmm.
So you really want to use, and especially in regenerative farming, they use these principles of using cover crops and perennial pastures, and the land is constantly covered and there is a diverse mixture of plants going on there, and so it's keeping the ground in essence cooler and at
mm-hmm.
the right degree for these organisms. And then you're also integrating animals back on to the land, and they are leaving behind then their poop and their urine, and in the end they're feeding the organisms as well.
And so animal poop is actually one of the best natural fertilizers you can have. Through different things I've read and researched, rabbit poop is apparently gold. Chicken poop is also really good. However, it is hot. You do have to let it sit for a while. On our farm here, we have goats, and so we do use our goat poop and our chicken poop, and we throw it in our compost. It's all just really good, natural, organic ways to feed your soil to regenerate it. And so that's one thing we're going to talk about next, is really the biggest difference that we have been able to see and talk about, and really see the truth behind dirt versus soil, is Abby actually has dirt. Where she's living, the farm that they are regenerating, we used to be conventional farming. That's the practices that they used. Whereas where I'm living was not used for farming at all. It's actually just 7 acres of grass and woods and a pond. It was never used for farming, and now we're wanting to use it for farm. And so the difference that we have seen, for me, where I'm at, is when we first moved here, we have a beautiful pond out back, and I want to make sure it stayed beautiful. And in my mind, I thought you would have to do something to make that happen. And I had a guy come out and he took a look at our pond, and I was asking him questions, and he said, don't touch it. Everything is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. The ecosystem is working perfectly. You have all the animals you want to have out there. We have a ton of frogs. We have so many frogs out there. Bunch of insects. Our fish are thriving. They're reproducing. And all of that is just allowing nature to do what nature is supposed to do. And so that was really cool to hear. Then later, I wanted to have a garden. And doesn't look like a garden's ever been out here before. So I had a guy come out, take off the sod of a plot of area. He then told me as he was doing this that he saw a ton of earthworms. And I had no idea that was a good thing until we started talking. And yeah, earthworms apparently are amazing. And the more I've learned about them, they are amazing. They eat through the soil, which is breaking that soil up, turning it naturally, and then they're pooping it out and creating that fertilizer. If you go to natural stores looking for ways to heal your land or to take care of pesticides or bring something back to life, worm castings are high on the list of what people use for those issues. And so worms are just great. We love worms. But so that was great news to hear. He then took a soil sample, and when he called back, I was like, what do I need to do to amend it? And he said, nothing. You have an extremely nutrient soil. So the way that looked for me is when I threw seeds out there, pretty much everything grew. And I didn't really have any pest issues. This is really my first time gardening in grounds like this, so I had no idea that my gardening experience was just flawless. Whereas other people typically have issues. And yes, and so that brings us to Abby and how her experience was much different.
Yeah, so our garden has been conventionally gardened for many years. We used everything from tillage to chemicals to synthetic fertilizers, and in the end we've gotten to the point now of we just have dirt. And so the last couple of years I have started to use cover crops to keep my ground covered. And you know, we didn't even really see earthworms whatsoever in our garden until last year. I got thrilled when I saw earthworms and stuff. And then even down to our tomatoes and stuff, I used mulch around them. And for the first time in a long time that we didn't have blight issues whatsoever, and our tomato plants went crazy. They were very happy and produced for us. So
mulching is another big thing when we talk about regenerating and creating soil. Mulching, you can use wood chips. That's what I have used. and it eventually breaks down, turns into soil. Leaves are amazing.
Yes.
Organic matter, they do a great. And then composting is huge. And so I mentioned that using animal poop, we use our animal bedding. We just throw it all into our compost, all of the goat bedding, all of the chicken bedding, and we add fruits and vegetables. For instance, if you were eating a banana, instead of throwing that banana peel into the trash, throw it into a compost pile. Any vegetable skins, fruit skins, leftovers,
Eggshells,
pieces, eggshells,
coffee grounds.
Those are really good too. All of that can be composted. You set it outside. It takes a year, 2 years. It all just kind of depends. And it does depend if you turn it. That's one thing I don't do. I just throw it all out there. If you're turning it, you can actually get it to happen within 6 months sometimes. It just kind of depends. It needs airflow, it needs watering, etc. So you can get really into composting, or you can do what I do. I just throw it all out there, and it will eventually...
Whatever you do, just don't let your chickens into it because they will eat the whole pile.
Yeah, which tells you it's good organic material because the chickens want to eat it.
Yes.
So anyways, it eventually composes down to soil, and that makes great food for your garden to plant things. And so composting is another huge thing, and it shows you how when you are creating a good base and you are feeding your microorganisms, how it all works together. And I love the picture of by putting cover crops out, you're feeding your animals who are then pooping, who that poop is nutrient, it is replenishing that ground, feeding those microorganisms, and then the cycle begins again. You plant cover crops again, they feed, and it just is a whole cycle. And it all works together the way it's supposed to. And something we're going to talk about next week is diversity, where we actually go more into that. But I wanted to end this video. Abby posed this pretty awesome question to me, and I think it's a great way to end it.
Okay, so where do you find their dirt? You know, you only find it where there's been a catastrophic event or where man has imposed his will. And in my reading that I was doing in my Bible, I came across a verse. It was from Job, chapter 12, verses 7 and 8. And it talks about asking the beasts and the birds and the fish and the earth, you know, teach me, show me. And I realized that, was I truly observing what they were telling me to see? And was I understanding nature and how it's all supposed to work? Or was I just enforcing my will on creation?
And that's something I recently read in a book on regenerative farming, and how being an observer to your land, walking it, knowing what's going on, you are going to be able to fix problems that you see through nature telling you what's there. And so that was a great question she posed. Just seeing the difference between where do you see bare dirt and where do you see soil? Where's the dead and where's the living? Really, really neat. So thank you so much for joining us today as we talked just briefly about dirt versus soil. Like I said, next week we're going to talk about diversity versus monocultures, which again, I'm pretty passionate about that as well, and I find it really exciting and fun to talk about. So thank you.